Okay, so welcome back to GamesCast. This is number 28. We're from the
Are we not on 29 now?
No, I think this is 28, unless I've made a mistake, which is...
The GamesCast number is 29.
We'll edit that post-show. Welcome back to GamesCast29. As you can probably tell, I'm hosting it this week, which is why there's already a mistake. We're still in our home offices from the University of Huddersfield, and you've got myself, Ash. We're joined by Gary this way, and then we've got Matt up top as well. So, let me figure out what the buttons do. I think let's go back to what's on the box, which is what everyone
What's on the box
turns up for.
Yeah, best little mini game on Twitch.
What you can say?
You tell me.
Oh, I hope I've done mine right.
Box, who's in the box?
Yeah,
What's in the
I feel
box?
like
there's only three of us.
What's in the box?
There you go. I ran the intro, but there's a lot of talking over it. So for people that don't know, do you want to explain it, Matt?
Sure. So what's on the box is a little fun game we play before every Gamescast, just to get everyone involved in the chat. It's essentially where we take the box art of a game, we write down the description that's on the back of the box, and we have to guess the game just from the description. It's what's on the box.
Yep, simple. Sorry, I noticed my cursor was on the screen somehow, and I was trying to figure out why. It only goes over Gary. Okay, so me first. I normally go last. This time I'll go first. I think I did. I don't think I've got one yet what people have really struggled with. So, somebody, the internationally renowned sneak thief, must steal back the stolen something, his family age-old book of burglary, and restore their long-standing reputation as the world's greatest jewel thieves.
Jewel thief game. Thief?
yeah, that was my first thought as well.
Is it the game Thief? Have you given us the clue in the title? It can't be, because he would have got rid of that, wouldn't he?
Yeah, it's not thief. The book, the title of the book sort of gives the game away as well, which is why that's blurred out.
Does it?
Chat's interesting.
Oh, that I've just seen the chat. It could be that. Is it Sly Cooper?
It is. It's Sly Cooper. I think that was 10 seconds longer than when you normally guess it, so that's okay, I guess. I'll try.
I do. Have you put it? They did a really good remake. Well, not a remake. It was a HD remaster, but it was a really clean, solid remaster.
Was that for the Vita?
I don't know if it came out on the Vita as well. It was on PS4.
I played on the Vita, I think. So,
Chat.
do you know what? It didn't even. I don't think I even knew what the plot of Sly Cooper was, or Sly Raccoon, as you've written it here. But is it called Sly Raccoon in America?
Yeah, Sly Raccoon. No, it's called Sly Raccoon over here, I think. I think chat has just muddled your mind by saying Sly Cooper, because that's who he is. But I'm sure it's called Sly Raccoon.
Is it called? He's called Sly Cooper, isn't he?
Yeah, but the game's Sly Raccoon.
No, Sly Cooper, Thieves in Time, Sly Cooper 2. It's like the Sly Collection.
Wait.
I think it might be called Sly Cooper in some countries and Sly Raccoon in others.
We rented ours from Blockbuster, and I'm sure it was called Sly Raccoon.
Sly Raccoon maybe that's the first one.
Possibly. I prefer the name Sly Raccoon.
Oh no, the first one apparently Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus.
That's the name of the book. The Thievius Raccoonus.
But that seems to be the one that came out on the PS2 in 2000. I'm quite intrigued now. Which countries it's Raccoon and which country it's Cooper.
Anyway, weird.
That's a good game anyway.
Yes. Gary's next. Is it going to work? There we go.
Okay. Blank is a game unlike any other in the X universe. Every challenge you face and decision you make is driven by you. Fight the undead, scavenge through the flooded ruins of New Orleans, and face gut-wrenching choices for you and the other survivors. Live. Franchise name.
So what is this X that you put in? Is that the franchise?
Yeah, I would have given it away, so I didn't want to like.
So, New Orleans, Fight the Undead.
It's not
Muzzy's not
Left 4
allowed to. Muzzy's
Dead.
not allowed to say it if he's in the chat.
Oh.
Oh, is
Mm.
it? It's not the expansion for Red Dead, is it? The Red Dead Halloween one.
Nope.
No.
It's a VR game. I'll give you that.
Sunset. Oh no,
it's something like
what
Sun.
was that? The zombie VR game called? With that you can play
It's
multiplayer.
quite bright, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is that called?
It's good.
Chat's doing pretty
Arizona
well.
Sunshine.
That's it.
No, Arizona Sunshine's like an Xbox title, right?
No, it's VR.
No, Arizona is survival, zombie survival first-person shooter game
right, yeah.
for Vive.
Sunset
I meant
Overdrive.
Sunset Overdrive, yeah. That's it. I got the words mixed up.
It's not.
Chat's got it anyway, so yeah.
Is it the Walking Dead one?
It is. It is a Walking Dead game.
The
Is it any good,
Saints
that
and
one?
Sinners.
Yeah, it's really
played
good.
it.
It's really good. Really high tension, like survival-y type thing. You kind of go to different parts of the city, and it's really kind of visceral combat. Like you actually have to, you have to be really forceful when you're like swinging your arm if you're gonna stab a zombie, because like if you don't swing it like hard enough, the knife will just kind of like embed slightly in its head, and it's like really like gratuitous.
That's cool. So it takes the velocity. So how many
yeah,
times
yeah.
have you smashed things in real life?
I mean, I've hit my desk, and I hit a wall. I hit the wall as well, but no damage, luckily.
Controls
But,
still work.
It's good. You get guns and stuff. It's. I'm surprised by it. I think I got it in like a humble bundle with a bunch of other VR games, but it's definitely worth it just as a standalone title. It's a very impressive Walking Dead game.
So many VR titles that I need to.
Oh, nice. Street Fighter.
So apparently we're all wrong, and it was Street Fighter.
It was Street Fighter.
Why is there Street Fighter there?
Yeah, I think it was the old. I think it's from the old slides.
I can see something underneath, so
Yeah, it's under there. I promise.
classic Street Fighter plot. Okay, some Matt's box.
Okay, so I've blanked out all names, but if you don't get it straight away, I'll tell you some of the names because
I've already got it.
But if you already got it, no.
It's not Vampire Massacre. Anyway,
As
read it.
someone stalk the shadows of Nosgoth, feeding on the souls of your former vampire brethren in your quest to destroy your creator, and then the name of your creator. After being destroyed and executed by this person, return to Nosgoth on an epic mission of revenge, a milestone in 3D adventure.
It's disgusting that this game does not have a HD remake.
So it's
It is,
old.
It was so good.
See, I was thinking that vampire game that's just come out. You did Castlevania last week, so it's not going to be that.
No,
It's Legacy
yeah.
of Kain, Soul Reaver.
Ooh.
It is Legacy
Is
of
it?
Kain, Soul Reaver.
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
It is one of those games that, if you go back and play, because I was playing it over the summer because I had a PlayStation Classic, so I put it on that. And controls are janky, visuals are janky, but it's still good.
Okay.
Like I actually had fun playing it, even though it was like it's just little things like the way that you kill the enemies that you have to impale them, but because the vampires that once you've impaled them, it doesn't mean they die. You have to then go and put them over a flame to set them on fire. You have to drag them over to a sun shaft to actually set so they burn alive and stuff like that. So you can literally, at first I was just button mashing, like trying to hit them, trying to kill them, and nothing happens because they're a vampire. They don't get hurt like that. You have to think, okay, how would you kill a vampire? And that's just the combat. The puzzles are pretty simple, but good. Like you say, it's such a shame that there isn't a either a HD remake or a complete remaster would be good.
Yeah,
You
or
can
just
tell.
another just another Soul Reaver game would be incredible.
I can tell you didn't get your PS5, Matt. If you're just replaying this on the weekend. I remember having this on a demo disc and really liking it, and then my mum got me the game, and I just couldn't do it. I could not figure it out because the demo was so different to the actual game. It was like a good vertical slice of it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I remember playing it, but
yeah, they have one of the best systems I've ever seen for mix. So at any point in the game, you can go from the light world, so the real world, to the underside world, the dark world. And he sort of like does this animation and this effect, and the whole world like twists and warps and changes color. Now, if you were to do that in a modern pipeline, you would need 2 entire environments, and it would be more assets and more production. But back then, they couldn't afford to do that because it was on the PS1 in terms of resources. So it's just literally the entire world warps on a shader, on a visual shader, is that all geometry twists and shapes, all textures twist and shape. It's so clever what they managed to get out of the original PlayStation.
that's pretty cool. Did not know that.
Sorry.
Now I want to play it. Oh damn it!
It can be their Christmas homework is go have a play. Look at what limitations it had to stick to.
Yeah.
Okay, so this week it's going to be just a little bit different. I'm almost on here as a guest speaker, so it's going to be quite a lot about me and Gary. Sort of what we did as students, so our placement year, we did EPY. And we're just going to really talk through the journey that my company took, but Gary's going to sort of clip in along the way because he did something similar, but he's had different experiences as well. So just a little bit of info about EPY and what it is to be indie. And all those.
So for anyone watching that doesn't know what EPY stands for, it's the Enterprise Placement Year. So University of Huddersfield, in your 3rd year, you have the option to do a placement year. And so you can either do that via a traditional industrial placement and apply for jobs like that, or we have Canal Side Studios, which is our in-house studio, or what some students choose to do is the Enterprise Placement Year, which is, as Ash is going to go into, more for those that want to develop their own business or want to be a little bit more entrepreneurial.
Yeah, it's a good approach. Like, we're moving. This industry is massive, and it's bigger than the films sort of movies. Sort of combined with music and stuff. It's such a big industry, but it's still growing at such a fast pace, and that there's now hubs and networks that we can connect to that support these indies and let them do their own sort of approaches. So really useful EPY is if you want to do it, we'll do some information on it now, but it's quite good at just getting first sort of hands-on experience and sort of starting your own thing. There's a couple of people doing it this year. I did it way back in 2012, I think. And Gary did it as well. What, 2013-ish?
So the way I kind of did it was I didn't actually take a placement year out because I did Canal Side. So basically, in my final year, I did the enterprise placement content. So I went to the weekly lectures and sort of utilized the team, and they helped us sort of set up our company and just sort of get us off our feet, really, just sort of make us understand what comes with starting your own business and things like that, and it's just been ongoing support, really. So yeah, I didn't actually do like I've not got a qualification in it or anything, but I did do a lot of the content that you probably would have done, Ash.
Yeah, so that's a good way of picturing it. Is essentially you're doing your own thing for your placement, but you're doing a sort of soft business course alongside it. So it's an alternative placement year where you explore, sort of research, develop your own ideas, and you get these lectures, you get these workshops where you can sort of build your business and do some good sort of business analysis along the way. So there's a slide here saying what we have to do. So if you start EPY, you put time and energy into it. So you class it as it's your full-time job. You'll sort of sleep and breathe it. But there are those workshops and meetings and sort of monthly catch-ups and reports to do to sort of outline the process and see where you're sort of going wrong and things you should try along the way. It's quite full on. It's a really good experience, really nice team as well that sort of run it. But you have to do it sort of all officially. So there's business plans. If you're doing games, there's a games design document as well. So you need to have all that sort of planned and figured out. So what will you gain? So you get transferable skills. So you can be your own boss. You can enter competitions as well, pitch in stuff. Get I think NatWest do some stuff with them where they sort of fund things. And you get knowledge from people that have done it before and that have done their own businesses and done this sort of enterprise building. Now, EPY do these talks better than what I'm doing, and there's some information towards the end, so you can attend some if you're interested. But I'm just trying to sort of roughly outline sort of what it sort of is. But the things where it's different from a placement and the things you will miss is you don't get paid. You're going to get paid sort of at the end of it, depending on how sort of well you do. You do get your student loan, but you get half of it, if I remember correctly, and you get no student grant. So there's a bit of support there to sort of get you going. But in terms of regular salary, that's not there. But there is sort of grants that EPY teams will give you to sort of go and do research.
Yeah, or to get hardware and things like that. There's been stuff like that in the past as well. Help you with. I think there's some money that can be used to like hire outside contractors or whatever as well. It's not a huge amount of money, but it's better than nothing. It's a few $100, I think.
Yeah, it all helps, especially when you're on such low sort of money anyway.
Yeah.
But the networking opportunities and the connections you'll make through it itself sort of pays for itself, really. So the team themselves, they give you sort of one-to-one meetings with business advisors. They put on workshops that you attend. They can give you office space as well, so it works as sort of a hub. You turn up on the day, get your laptops out, use it as an office space. You get a grant. There's some competitions and some pitching clubs, so you can work on that elevator pitch. You can work on presentation skills, anything really to be entrepreneurial. They teach and sort of give you feedback on.
Just to add as well, Ash, I've also been doing some work with the team as well. So if you do think of it, I might be on board just to kind of help you, with those sort of early steps, trying to identify what it is you're looking to, I don't know, do, whether it's, you want to establish yourself as a studio and, what steps do you need to take to kind of put those plans into motion and sort of help you to realize your like potential as a business. So I don't know. I guess there's kind of a bit of like industry input there from myself and from others as well, sort of like mentoring and I'm happy to sort of be as on board or as like as distant as you kind of want me to be. So I'm kind of working with someone this year who I don't know, he might be floating around in the chat, but we've had kind of a chat already about what his goals for the year are going to be and how we achieve those goals and just kind of industry insight and hey, go and think about joining Game Republic or something, and these networks can help you to make contacts in places and things like that. So you've got a really fantastic the enterprise team are really fantastic, and they'll give you really in-depth business support, but for the game side as well, there is also a little bit of kind of industry input there as well, and that's currently from myself.
I think that's great. I think because you've seen the process, you've had hands-on experience, you've got a successful company that has come through doing all this. So having you there to sort of lend knowledge and you don't get success handed to you on a plate. You have to work for it. And along the way, you're going to get burned and make so many mistakes that having you there to guide and mentor or just even trickle some advice if they want it, I think is going to be a massive help.
Yeah, even just to try and open doors for people as well. If there's something in particular someone might be good at, and I've heard, I don't know, maybe on the grapevine that I don't know, someone with their skill sets needed at a company and they could maybe do some freelancing or something just to help to fund themselves while they then work on their own internal projects as well. That's the kind of thing that I'm kind of happy to do, depending on I think you've got to be in a very particular mindset to want to do EPY, and I really don't think it's for like the faint-hearted type thing. I think you've got to already have quite a strong vision in terms of what you want to make, and the roots, almost have like your roots kind of mapped out, and at least be sort of thinking about where does your product or your services kind of fit into the market, and you know and then from there it's, hey, let's establish a business. It's got all this business advice and mentorship, and try and make it work in the year. And you don't know, like, it could, it's one of those things where, like, I think EPY is a great opportunity because you're in university, and you've not got like the vast majority of us don't have a massive amount of like obligations, like, probably don't have families. We probably don't have a lot of kind of debt outside of students
I'm
and
pretty sure
stuff.
A really weird way of saying, like, you don't have like
No,
partners
yeah.
and children and stuff.
Yeah.
You don't have families.
Yeah, we don't have like huge commitments, huge like life commitments, like we don't have mortgages and stuff. It's kind of, hey, if you're gonna do it and it fails, then it's fine, because it's all like a super valuable learning experience regardless. And that's kind of how I've always kind of viewed EPY as been a really interesting opportunity to learn about business, learn about how those processes work, and get involved in the games industry as potentially, like, the co-founder or the founder of your own company, and start off like quite at a high level.
Yeah. EPY for me has always been is that it's for a certain type of student. There are those that will go through course and they'll say they'll know what they want to do. They want to go and work at a particular type of studio, or they want to go and work for a particular company. But there is a handful that go, no, I actually have this vision of what I want to do. I want to make my own company. I want to drive my own path. And EPY is great for exploring that. And as you say, is that majority, not all the students, because some students have quite severe commitments, but a lot of students, they don't really have major commitments, so they can afford to go, actually, if I'm going to do it anytime in my life, anytime in my career, now is probably the right time to do it.
Yeah. I completely agree. I can't imagine me. So I'm quite open with this, and I used to have severe depression. I was on medication for a long time, and I was very worried that this wouldn't be right for me. But if you've got the passion, and like Gary says, you can lay that sort of foundation. And if EPY seems right for you, then it probably is, and we can work around those sort of things. I think it's a good point that it's better to do it sooner when you're younger, because most of the time you're probably just looking after you or your partner, and there's less commitments. There's no mortgage, there's no car finance, probably no kids. Some of us do have that, but it's still not impossible. It's about managing that time and proper planning and foreseeing and backups.
Yeah. In the chat, I can see there's a question here. What would be your recommendations for people with those commitments? The short, non-complicated answer is if you are driven and that is exactly what you want to do, you will make it work. And there's no real right answer or wrong answer to any of it. It's just like if you know for a fact that that's what you want to do, you will be driven to get up every morning, work hard, try and push it forward. You'll be at every single external event you possibly can be, because that's what you want. And I've seen people in the industry that have huge commitments, take entire risks. They would have been working in the industry for a long time. They've got that secure job, but it wasn't making them happy. They wanted to be their own person. They wanted to branch out. And so they quit their job with kids, with mortgages, with this, and they go, no, I'm going to do it. Yeah. Some of them succeed. Some of them end up back at different studios a few years later when they realize it hasn't worked. But
you'll find out why I'm teaching sort of at the end of this, because I did this process, it went well, but I ended up going to something I was happier with. But we'll get to that sort of later. Yeah, some nice points there. But it's all about planning, and brings on nicely is that if you are interested in EPY, just reach out to me. I can tell you about my experience in a bit more depth if you want, or get you in touch with that team. If you are interested as well, they're doing some workshops where you get to ask questions to people that are already doing it and seeing if it's sort of right for you. And they have drop-in sessions as well with the team, so you can ask those more personal questions or sort of propose ideas. If you want to apply to be on EPY, there's sort of the last deadline is Friday the 12th of March. Now, they only take, I believe, it's 20 students through the entire university. So spaces are quite limited, but we always seem to have someone from the games team doing it.
We have we're slightly unique compared to a lot of the other courses, the other degrees that sort of do their own EPYs. That we have EPY for games, which when they say there's 20 places, is that actually we've got because we work within teams. Is actually if you've got a team of people that want to work together, that classes as one person. In terms of the numbering, so it's not like if there's a team of 5 of you that's going to take up 5 spots on the EPY program. So we are slightly unique in that manner, but this is aimed at our second years that are thinking about what they want to do right now. Obviously, we're going to have our team projects and our game jams in January, and maybe that is a good opportunity to start trialing team working exercises, things like that, maybe experimentation with your ideas that you might want to consider taking forward into EPY. If you think you're one of those people that wants to do it, come and have a chat with us as early as you can, so we can start planning those that are interested in EPY. As we said, it's not for everybody. It has its shortcomings, and we're probably going to discuss the major shortcoming of that is the money issue. How do you support yourself for a year with no income? But that's part of the discussion.
Oh, happy for people to message me on Discord as well, and you know, if people are thinking about it, you know, and you value any input that I can help with, I'm happy to just, you know, hear you out and I don't know, try and pick some holes in your thought processes and try and help you shore up some of your thoughts and ideas as well. So yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, we both did it, and we both had very different experiences and very different outcomes. So, if you chat to one of us, it's worth chatting to both. So, go on.
I was just gonna say, and the indie experience is extremely difficult, and it's ridiculously impressive that Gary made it work. As we go through experience, I'll let you know. I tried to do the indie experience and I failed. So it's quite interesting to see Gary's point of view as someone that succeeded in that indie approach.
I think I sit in the middle.
I'm happy to. Yeah, I'll expand on that in a bit, because you know, a lot of our major income sources now is from the kind of work for hire stuff. You know, is co-development with other developers, sort of offering our sort of skills. I'm very lucky to have a very talented, to be working with a very talented technical director, Luke, and together we can cover a lot of kind of prototyping work. So we've done a lot of things in the past where, like, you know, I'll sort of handle art and design. Luke kind of handles programming, gameplay, implementation, stuff like that. So we can kind of offer a wide variety of services, because as Ash is probably going to go into it, wearing, you know, many different hats, you're kind of multi-skilled in a lot of different ways. So yeah, I'll expand a bit on that as Ash goes through the presentation.
Cool. So just to recap, if you just joined us, is that it's mostly going to be slides from when I used to go and do guest lectures at EPY after our experience. So I've had to redact a few things and make it work. So Gary's going to sort of chip in with his versions of sort of along the way. But I just wanted to get a sort of how the experience was for me in the process, and just give you a short, I guess, story of how this whole EPY system works for us. And it starts off just being a student. So in 2010, I started university with no knowledge of games whatsoever. I didn't do that in college. And it was about me trying to find what I sort of liked. So at the end of term one, I knew sort of I needed to do a little bit better. Lewis was in the course. Everyone sort of looked up to him. He was like the top dog of the course. But over the summer, me and my best friend, we sort of set ourselves, okay, we broke up. We've got, what is it, 3-6 months till we go back into second year. Let's create a working environment. Let's work 9 till 5. Let's build a little project. Let's grow our skills. So we did that. I think we had a talk as well from somebody who basically said the more you give, the more you receive, and that sort of really set in and resonated with me. So I did that over the summer, got into second year, and then sort of met Lewis and Sam a bit better. But we'll get into that in a minute. But I just wanted to have this slide here because it is the more passion, the more work you pour into something, the better you're going to get, and you're going to get more out. And the whole EPY experience is like that. So, like I say, we met Lewis. Lewis and Sam did the same thing, apparently, after after term one ended, year one ended. They did the same thing and did their own sort of project. So I sort of met them when we got back in the second year. Lewis had this project for what was called Studio 2 back then, but it's now called Prototyping 2, and it was basically like an exploration game. And we were looking at placements, and we sort of wanted to get a foot in the door, and sort of we left it a bit too late. All the AAA ones had gone, so we sort of looked at EPY, and then looked at Lewis's concept, and then we were like, okay, maybe we could take this. We could work together. Originally, it was 4 of us, and then 1 person dropped out, so it was just the 3 of us. And then we spent a long time refining Lewis's games, doing concepts, ideas, and creating a GDD, which is essentially what we then took to EPY and said, this is what we want to make. And I think having that GDD was really key. And it sort of helped us envision a project and explain it quite well as well. Don't know if you've ever made any GDDs, Gary.
For concept, yeah.
So GDD, sorry for those who don't know, is just a games design document. So it outlines everything. Essentially, you should be able to write a games design document, hand it to some developers, go on holiday, come back, and everything they need to know should be in them, essentially.
Yeah. GDD is generally a slightly outdated concept now. They tend to be more in wiki format or more agile documentation, but essentially a GDD is really, really useful for development.
It's good for getting started. I mean, it changed so many times when new ideas came into play, new technology came out, and our ideas and feedback from people. So we never stuck to the whole original one. It always changed through iteration, but it's a good way to get stuck in and get started and envision sort of a project in the end.
Yeah, it's a good way to kind of scope things out, like preliminary scope stuff. Being completely honest, me and Luke, we generally kind of just jump straight into kind of prototyping and things like that. So, for us, it's about trying to get a lot of the game feel down, and then the design comes a little bit later for us. But we definitely do have internal documents that have, a lot of the kind of features and mechanics kind of set out. And then, yeah, like Ash said, there's a lot of iteration on those. But you could spend too much time making a GDD, I think. And I think, to some extent, you just want to get into engine and start building this product. That's the thing, really. That as a designer, as a sort of small studio, that's the gold dust right there. You're not going to be able to go into an interview and hand over a 40-page game design document to someone, because they're not going to read it. But if you have a playable prototype or like a vertical slice, and even if it's just grey box, but you've got some really slick mechanics going on there, and you can kind of show off the systems that you're working on, it could be a really valuable tool as a designer and as small indie studio.
I think that's one of the reasons why the GDD hasn't died out, but completely, but it's not as widely used, because the ability to prototype now like rapid prototype is so available and so efficient for developers compared to what it used to be, is that you couldn't. It was very expensive previously to prototype stuff because you had to have a full team, you had to have engine programmers, you had to have someone to actually build your engine so you could prototype it in the first place. It was a very expensive thing, so you had to have a GDD so you knew what you were going to be essentially prototyping and spending that prototyping money on. But because you have the likes of Unity and Unreal and any other engine that even internally different studios, is that you can prototype so quickly now that why not just prototype it and see if it works? And that's your GDD. That's your game feel document. Is look, we've already worked out the game feel because we prototyped it. And then you can make your documentation around that prototype as opposed to the documentation feeding a prototype. It's the prototype feeding the documentation.
Yeah, I think it's good. Having that feel is sort of the make or break thing. I think with Lewis having a prototype anyway, back then it was in UDK, so Unreal Development Kit, so Unreal Engine 3. So we essentially started with one, but for us it was sort of getting the evidence together that we planned what we wanted the game to be. Next step was to actually go to EPY. So we're on now doing EPY. We did our sort of placement year, and it's pretty much everything we've already mentioned, so I'll not go over it too much again, but it was having that support to grow the business and learn how to market research, learn how to do our accounts, learn how to be spending money. So we'd start the process. We'd got sort of, at the time there was no office space there to use, but they had that now, and it's quite a cool little office. So after the GDD and stuff, we did a lot of research, and I think this has been the thing that has done the best thing for us in terms of creating it, is doing that research. At the time, we were looking into sort of a newish genre, which was sort of a first-person walking simulator. And we'd never really played them. We didn't really like them. So we all sort of sat down and looked at what games did it right, what games did it wrong, how boring they were, what was interesting about them, and came up with a product based on doing that research. And that research also stems to that market research as well. What is the player base for? How many people are actually wanting these games? And we found actually that there was sort of a trend as more were coming out, the more sort of interested people were getting with them. So then we created Dream, which was the title of our first product, and we sort of gave it the slogan that it's a first-person atmospheric exploration game. So it was mostly about the art, because we were all artists, but it is some sort of story in there too. We knew we were part of a sort of growing genre because of that research we did, which I think is probably key, and what in the end, in the long run, was what made our sort of product sell quite well. We also way overscoped. Like originally we thought it would take us a year and we'd do 2 other games. You'll find out in the end it took over 4 years just to get Dream finished. But we were right that this proves the research we did, that market and growth was good, because as we were making it, these games came out and they sort of got critically acclaimed, which is kind of good. I think if we'd have been a little sooner, we'd have probably just gone home and just been in there. I think we came out just a little bit too late because we'd sort of overscoped. So the actual developing the game was difficult, and it's probably the bit we can probably talk quite a lot about. But it was, like we said before, having those funds there on, it was very difficult. There's a pretty depressing picture there of what our Christmases looked like. We were living in a house that was very cold. The boiler was breaking every couple of days. There was holes in the roof. There was holes in the walls. There was rats in the kitchen. Rent was 30 quid a week, and I was living in the living room. So it was a grim place. We had wires sort of cabling around. It looked very sort of techie, I suppose, but it was sort of where me, Sam, and Lewis were living. And living with each other and encouraging each other and working on the product was good, but it wasn't a very nice setting for my sort of mental health at the time. But that's it, isn't it? You've got to make these sacrifices, and 30 quid a week to just sit there with internet and get it going was fine for us. And we were living off 30 quid a month between us, going to Sainsbury's and buying 16p ramen kits. Lost lots of weight that year, and then, as Dream did well, I ate quite a lot, so it came straight back up. But they're the sort of sacrifices that we had to make. And I think it's quite nice because after living there for 2 years, we got some really nice apartments, so it sort of does pay off in the end. But at the time, it's such a hard slog, and when it gets to you quite mentally, being in that dark environment constantly, so waking up, getting out of bed, sitting on the computer, getting back into bed, it can become quite difficult.
Yeah.
But again, having that passion is what kept us going through.
I think that's it's different for every developer, but anyone that wants to go down that sort of indie freelance sort of route has that moment of, okay, well, how am I going to afford to do what I want to do? How am I afford to live? So you took the route of I'll live in a place that costs 30 quid a week instead. Others go down. So I attempted the indie dev route, and I'd managed to save up through work to have, and I said, I've got a year's worth of budget. I can work for a year. A year and a half down the line now, we sort of 2 years down the line, I had to sort of say, no, I'm gonna have to stop now because I can't afford it anymore.
I think that was overscoping as well.
It was. We made our own engine, which in hindsight was a stupid thing to do, but we did. We made our own engine, and actually, in retrospect, when I look back, the guy that I was working with, called Ashley, amazing programmer, he wasn't ready for it. Is that we started to go to all the events, and we started to go to all the sort of the big marketing push and trying to get to the publishers and things like that, and he wasn't in the right mental place at the time to start doing all of that. So it kind of just fell on me to try and do that, as well as all the art, as well as all the design, as well as the coding. And it just wasn't enough, especially when I started to have to step away and say, no, I need to make more money. My freelance is going to have to pick up. I'm going to have to start taking more bigger jobs, which are going to pull me away. Is that it just slowly fizzled. It's a shame looking back because we had an amazing product. But it was one of those things where you have to make a decision, you have to make a choice, and you push through that barrier of living with rats, and you had a success out of it.
Yeah, but as you'll find out, a lot of it is luck as well. So I was very fortunate that every couple of months my granddad would give me a £200 check, which, paid it back in the end, and then some as a thank you. So I had a little bit of support, and I can't sit here and say I did it all myself, but I know Sam had a little bit as well. Lewis I think he had his girlfriend at the time, and she was supporting him. So while we were on very tight money, we were relying on other people getting us sort of through. So it was a difficult time, but it does pay off, and I think it's important because we had that research as well.
I think just to add, like from my perspective, it doesn't sound like I had as hard a time as you guys did, sort of getting off the ground. I was lucky enough that I kind of was able to tie a lot of that kind of growth stage, I guess, or like at least the starting out stuff to like final year, So like we're back on final year, was already kind of juggling the initial project funding we got for SIGTRAP and things like that, as well as kind of working as a games ambassador for Microsoft, doing a part-time job as a community manager as well. So there was a bunch of stuff I was kind of doing, and I guess for me it was I guess like a giant like mental, like I don't know, like a big capacity thing. I was like always at capacity. It was either working on university work, or I was actually working, doing the one of many jobs that I had at the time.
You were pushing yourself a lot.
Yeah,
I remember.
Yeah, I really was pushing myself. I was still doing stuff on Dream as well, like kind of juggling little bits on Dream, kind of winding down off that as I was going up on sub level, and I was still kind of doing the community management stuff for Sketchfab as well at the time. So and then the games ambassador stuff on top of that for Microsoft. So yeah, it was, yeah, luckily a good time for me to start engaging with these processes, and tried to tie as much into university as I could. You know what I mean? If there was a module I could get away with, like, hey, can I do some visual design on like the branding for the game? Like, can I do this? It was always going to the staff and trying to wiggle in some of the like live project work onto my modules as well, which helped. I don't know if that's still a thing that you can do.
Oh, it is. It's something that we encourage. If you've got a live project and a live thing that you want to do, then it's the best type of project.
Totally take advantage of that then, if that's something that is still available, because that really helped me in my final year.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Looking,
pressure.
Yeah, looking back, it's like I didn't try the indie route until years after graduation, so I'd already started trying to get established with the sort of commitments that life brings, of like living wages. I got comfortable with a certain amount of money every month from certain jobs, and then I went, okay, no, I'm gonna try it, and then as that money whittles down, it gets harder and harder. But if there was an EPY program when I was at university, which there wasn't, I think I would have been encouraged. I probably would have gone on that sort of approach, and sort of looking back when I tried to do it, is that I was trying to learn all the business side of it at the same time as trying to develop, and I didn't know any of it, so I was just doing it through literal trial and error and learning. And if there was someone that could have supported me and helped me like there is on the EPY, I think that would be really useful. So it is interesting.
It's a nice point, because I don't think I would have done this without EPY. The fact you went ahead and you tried it because you knew that was something that you feel like would be good for you is good. So having EPY there as a sort of jump start into learning it, I think, is opening up so many people who are sort of somewhat interested and giving it a go. Just to move on, we mentioned luck, and that plays a key part. And you'll notice throughout this, yes, skill is involved, but a lot of it is luck as well, and a lot of networking. But back in the day, I say this like it's like I'm really old, but to get on Steam, you needed a publisher. There was no self-publishing on Steam until they released something called Greenlight. So this was sort of a new concept, because you could put your game on there, you could pitch it, and then the top sort of games would have access to release their game on Steam, which was great. Steam Greenlight was sort of hit and miss, and eventually they closed it down. It was a lot of sort of indies putting silly things up there, but we were one of the first games to get greenlit, which was good. And I think that really boosted the sort of the outreach. I think we had like as soon as it got greenlit, I think we had like 20,000 people having on their wish list, which already is a huge audience for us to go after. But we did some sort of stats analysis, and I think we came second in greenlight, and eventually people said they would buy the games, compared to like 57% in the top 50 that said they would. So did a really good product on there from the skill, but having the look of Greenlight coming up to get us onto the biggest PC platform at the time was incredible. And one of the main reasons we actually managed to survive, which you'll sort of hear about later.
I was quite intrigued actually. When was yours? What year was yours greenlit? When was that? Because we went through greenlight as well, and it was really interesting back then, because it was all about tracking those numbers, trying to get your audience count up and getting those likes and stuff. And then eventually greenlight became, like you said, just this weird, let's put jokey games up and push things through. That's why greenlight got sort of killed.
Yeah, you have people saying like, we'll give you a free key for the game if you've upvoted on greenlight and stuff like that.
Yeah, so here we posted it.
2012?
Yeah, 29th of August 2012, and we're in the first 10 to get greenlit. Let's see if there's an announcement post of when it got greenlit. No, I can't see anything. Don't think it says when it does, but yeah, it was interesting. I mean, you can see here that 2,216 comments in total. The sort of outreach of it was huge. But like you said, Matt, as soon as it started getting swamped with silly indie things, people putting incorrect stuff up, it got a lot harder to get greenlit.
Yeah. Well, it became at the back end of the Greenlight program. It got really easy. Well, it wasn't. It was a weird sort of situation because there was the way that the Greenlight program was. It relied on people voting, and at the back end of it, people just didn't want to vote. They were just voting for silly things. So it was that was the reason why they got rid of it. Is that it was really hard to get people motivated to go and vote in the numbers that needed to be. You needed to get votes in order to get greenlit. So we got our game greenlit quite early in development. It was in like really pre-alpha stage where we put it up and got it greenlit. So it was on for ages, and then eventually greenlit got killed off as our development went on. It's interesting to look back at how Steam was very different back then.
Interestingly, 11th of September 2012. Here are the first 10 launch titles for Steam Greenlight, and Project Zomboid is on there, so that was one of them. Towns, Routine, No More Room in Hell, McPixel, Kenshi, Heroes and Generals, Dream, Black Mesa, and Cry Fear. So some pretty biggish titles as well.
Wow, yeah. Some ones that are still being developed as well to this day as well. It's crazy.
Is that Project Zomboid still being developed?
Yeah, I think it's just come out of early access.
They had Cars lately or something, didn't they?
I'm not sure.
It's still in alpha.
Still in early access.
That's it. Games take so long to make.
Yeah.
But yeah, moving on is we eventually ran out of money. I remember the day Kickstarter said they were coming to the UK because it was US only. And I was in bed at probably like 12 p.m. here because we went to sleep at like 5 a.m. And Sam and Lewis come running into my bedroom saying, Kickstarter's coming to the UK. So straight away we went into the uni, borrowed some cameras, did our video, and made a huge mistake. We didn't realize it was going to be a huge PR campaign, constantly developing and constantly keeping up to date on Kickstarter and pushing out updates. We even pushed it to all those green sort of light backers, and I think we asked for, I think it might have been $8,000, and we got 5, and so we missed out on all of the money. Looking back, good job really, because $8,000 would have gone us nowhere, but it would have kept us going to early access. Yeah, and I remember this was at Christmas as well, so no one has spare money. It was just a really silly time to launch it, and we didn't really market it properly. And I remember just New Year's Day, I was in the bath just crying, like so much years of work poured in, loads of hard work, sleepless nights, on top of all the mental health dealings and stuff, and it was just like, when will it end? And then I just came to me then is, wait a minute, we've got 20,000 people on Greenlight who have said they would buy it. Let's offer them a key off the books if they donate £5 or more to keep us building it, and we'll develop it as soon as we run out of money again. And that got us a couple of grand, and it kept us going for a couple of months, which was huge. I think that was one of the big turning points, and the Valley of Death is something that keeps coming up in lots of talks, and it's things go a bit rubbish and then it just dips. And if you can get out of that dip, apparently things are supposed to be fantastic going forward. I thought that was probably the Valley of Death.
Valley of Death, yeah.
How many, Gary?
There was one really big one. There was one really big one where we were really struggling, and it came from sort of similar like mistakes, just kind of I don't know, it's kind of not thinking more like medium to long term. So like, we had some work on, it kind of, the work for hire stuff had kind of run dry a little bit, and sales from sub level were okay, but it wasn't enough to kind of cover our kind of monthly costings and stuff. So the bank account's slowly whittling down and down. It's like it's getting to that point where we're thinking, all right, okay, is this it? Like, do we have to go and find other jobs? And then it took some, going to some networking events and really trying to push ourselves, reaching out to kind of existing clients and contacts and just anyone we knew, like, hey, you know, if you need anything doing, any, you know, prototyping or art or code or whatever, you know, like, we're here, we're available, blah blah blah. And we had some pretty great stuff come through from some folks, and they give us some prototyping gig for a game which never got released, and it was really good. And I'm sad that it never saw the light of day, but that really helped us to get out of that rut. You know what I mean? You know, so there's always those kind of like there's a lot of those stresses as well. Sort of running your own company is kind of, you hold the reins, you hold, you know, there's no one there who's kind of, you're making those business decisions, and if those decisions don't work out, then it kind of lands on you. And if you've got employees, then, you know, it trickles down to them, and it's I think that can be quite tough, you know, mentally, to cope with sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's really nice just being open and honest about stuff like that, because I think it happens to a lot, and then they think everybody else is making a success. Why am I sort of struggling? When in fact, it happens to a lot, and it's how you deal with those situations. And again, a lot of it is luck, but it's having that portfolio and skills and that outreach and that networking.
Yeah, I will always be absolutely transparent to anyone, you know, who wants to talk about this kind of stuff. You know, at least from my experience, you know. I'm doing well enough to make a living off it at the moment. I'm not a multimillionaire, haven't made a breakout massive indie hit or anything like that, but, you know, I can pay my bills. I can, you know, have a 3D printer. I can, you know, I can have some nice things. And I'm content with that, you know what I mean? And if
Yeah.
I can continue to keep doing that, then I will.
I think there's some really interesting points there about that expectations plus. One thing you said there, which actually happens to everybody at some point in their careers, you work on things that never get released or never see the light of day, and I think sometimes you leave university thinking that everything that you touch will be gold and everything you touch that will get released and be put out there. But I've worked on lots of projects where it's just nothing ever happened of it. You send all your artwork off, work on freelance gigs or whatever it might be, and it was awesome, but never got released. And you hear that all the time from developers.
And they're under NDA as well, so you can't put them on portfolio.
Yeah, a lot of stuff you do just can never be shown to anybody. And that
my art station would be like double the size, and it'd be filled with like way more, like, I don't know.
Yeah,
way
I think so. There's this sort of the weird expectation when students. I talk a lot about with my final years that you need to look at portfolios and stuff, but actually, a portfolio isn't a true reflection of what that person has done, because the majority of stuff on the portfolio you cannot put work that you've worked on unless it's been signed off out of an NDA, so it's been approved. So stuff you've worked on all the time just never sees the light of day. No one sees it outside of that particular company, and you can't show it to anyone. So you have these massive holes in your career where you're going, well, what did you do here? Well, I worked on some stuff for this company. And you're like, okay, cool. No one knows what that is, but it's just it's part and parcel of the thing. There was one of our ex-graduates came and gave a talk a few years ago, and he was working on a title for 4 years, at which point it then got shelved. So he has 4 years in his career where he has nothing to show for it. He can't even tell people what game he was working on because it hadn't been cancelled. It got shelved, so it's still under NDA. And it was like, that is just brutal that you've spent that long and you can't do anything about it. And it's just it's just a reality of the industry. It's a reality of not just the games industry, because this is important. Is that it's the reality of the creative industries. Is that a lot of stuff you do just either goes in a prototype or it goes into an initial version or whatever it is. In the chat, we've got Daryl chiming in saying that it happened to him constantly, working on projects, working on things that just flitter into the nether of development.
That's why he's got a small portfolio.
it's everything though, from the indies like you, Gary, all the way up to the big AAA studios. Is that they're constantly doing stuff that never sees release. So it is interesting. Daryl's putting his best project, Barbie Travels in Time.
I remember him telling me about the Barbie games. I think there was a couple. But just to carry on, I'm just a bit conscious of the time.
I think we need to change the dial now from depressive
No,
realism
it gets
to
better.
optimism and the fun
Yeah.
stuff.
So we'll move away from me crying in the bath and coming up with that idea. But we realised it was about outreach, and I think you said it earlier, Matt, is that you need to go to these events. You need to reach out. You need to network. You need to get known in the industry. You need to reach out to publishers. And luckily, Sam was the face of the company. Me and Lewis were sort of behind the screens, sort of making it all work. We did go to the big events, but Sam was out there making meetings for us all, doing lots of things. And eventually, EPY came to us and like, actually, we've just been given the go ahead to give you £500 to go do some research. So we took that £500. I think I mentioned this story on the live stream last week. We bought 2 screens at Eurogamer, a nice big expo, and demoed the game. And from there, we got talking to a guy dancing in a chicken outfit. Just seemed pretty cool. Invited us out to a pub. So we went to, at the time, it was Guild Wars 2 had sponsored the party. So it was an open bar, really fun. Got chatting, really nice guy. Went home and we had an email sat in our inbox from him. He worked for Devolver, showing off. He was in the chicken suit because of Hotline Miami. Devolver had just been created from another company, which was Mastertronic. So we got 2. Mastertronic focuses on sort of retail, but they were going into digital, and Devolver was purely digital. And then they said, here's Mastertronic, sort of our sister company at the time. Do you want us to pay you some money to finish the game? So we're like, yes, please. So they gave us an initial injection of 80 grand and overall gave us about 100 grand to just finish this game. So they gave us that money paid for office space, marketing, QA, localization, sort of other trade shows. So finally, we had a lot of money to sort of start making the game. Now, we weren't rich. We didn't spend it on ourselves. We got paid poorly, but we had an office space to get out of that house. We hired Gary, who we'd met in second year, and we paid Gary a penny or two. He was very poorly paid, so I apologize for that. But we grew the team. And then Gary came to a lot of sort of shows with us as well. And, you know, I think having that friendly, vibrant chat and those mannerisms and chatting to people and networking is what gets you sort of approached. The reason I think they asked to sort of fund our game is because they met us as a team.
A lot of the time, these people invest in you know the team as much as the concept. You know, you speak to a lot of these publishers, and you know, if you are sort of well mannered and you know you vibe well with them, it can really help you to sort of get your game published as well. You know, I'm not 100% certain of how that applies to sort of 2020's kind of games climate, but you know, certainly when we were kind of, you know, starting out with these things, these publishers are investing in the teams as well as the title. You know, this was potentially a longer term commitment between the publisher and developer, because you know, if the game does well, then the developer goes on to make the next game, and who's to say developer doesn't come back to same publisher again. You know, you building these long-term working relationships with these platform holders and with these you know, with these publishers as well. So it's all super valuable stuff.
I think we can put an anecdote on that, because it still applies today that they want to work with teams more than the concept of the game themselves. Because Canal Side Studios are the in-house studio. Every year we have a new team and they work on something awesome and make like, so the last year's lot were making Mirror's Tale. And before that, we've had Flux 8 and Coin Out Kingdom and Lads, some great games. And pretty much every year we get, through our contacts, through discussions, we get emails from publishers all the time but those discussions usually end at the point of letting the publisher know that that team is a 1 year only team, and after that year ends, we get a whole new fresh team of new students, and at that point they go, oh, okay, it's an awesome game, we would have loved to work with you, but good luck. And that's literally every year those discussions usually end that way.
It's risk.
Because,
it's risk,
yeah.
right? You know, it's a huge risk.
Yeah. I was saving it for later, but may as well do it now. Is our second game. We, throughout doing another year on Dream, we were quite close to Involver. They'd always be next to us at sort of events. We went to all their sort of parties and got on really well with them. And we'd finished Dream, we'd released it, and they said, "Are you making another game?" We're like, "Well, we've only really got an elevator pitch. It's a card game mixed with sort of a dungeon crawler using Steam sort of inventory system, swap cards with your friends." And they're like, "Great, we want it. We'll sign you." We're like, "But we've not got anything." And they're like, "That's fine. We know you as a team." Obviously, it didn't work out in the end, which I'll get to later. But it's about knowing that team and knowing their passion, their drive, their work. Yeah, and you get that through that networking.
There's absolutely, you know, if we're working on anything internally, there's a handful of kind of go-to publishers who we've kind of built relationships with over the past few years. That they're the kind of the first port of call. You know what I mean? Like, hey, we've got this idea. You know, here's our sort of pedigree as a company, as a studio. You know, are you interested in publishing it? And I think for the right teams, you can get away with pitching a concept, and you know, if it sounds great, some publishers might take that risk and invest that money. Others, you know, if you don't know them as well, or you know the concept's a bit risky, then yeah, they might want to see like a bit of a vertical slice, or they might want to see like a bit of a demo, just to kind of that proof of concept to them that you know you're capable of delivering the product that you want, and you know, they can also kind of test out the ideas as well.
That's cool. Right, so I'm just going to blitz through these bits. So we got funded, we took a year out of university, suspended for a year, carried on with Dream, went to lots of events. I normally do this slide and say, you know, we had to make sacrifices starting out. And for us, it was a social thing. It was really missing family, not really going out, drinking, not having the money to spend for that. But in the end, that sort of social and work mixed. We ended up going to parties in San Francisco, private boats, all for work. It was all work related. And just meeting that network, and it's the same. It's a big industry, but it's such a small industry at the same time. And I'm sure Gary's probably quite aware is that you meet the same people when you go to these events and you get on with them, and they have their own networks that they sort of introduce you to. So that social life mixes really well with work in the long run.
I think it's why it's important for you to get to know your course mates as well. You know, you don't know where you're all going to be in a few years' time. There's maybe opportunities there, and it's, you know, cultivating a nice culture, and just sort of making sure that everyone, you know, feels welcome, and you know, it just don't be a dick. You know, it's kind of
It is true, and I do think that idea of getting to know your course mates as well as you can, because you don't know who's going to go off and be the big success. Every year group has those people. I remember when for my graduating year, I had we had quite a close knit sort of year group, but we had one student that went off. He went off to live in India, and he went to work for Zynga, and he went for Pop and all these different sort of mobile games, and then he ended up opening his own studio in India, and he has the biggest gambling games on mobile for Indian markets. So it was just like one of those things that was like, you never expected him to go do that, but actually right now I remember a Unity event where he comes on stage to give a talk about success, and it's like, yeah, and keeping in touch with him just through things like LinkedIn and stuff like that, even if it's not direct friendship, just making sure that keep in touch with those contacts, because you never know when you might meet again. Because as you say, it's a small industry.
Yeah, I don't want it to come across like cynical, like, you know, like, oh yeah, get to know them so you can use them to get something out of them, you know.
No, yeah, no.
Actually, like, you know, make friends with people, because I've said it before, you know, you've kind of got this support network of people who they're going to give you crit and feedback, and they're going to help push yourself, and you're going to want to push yourself, you know. So for me, like, when I was doing my second year and I was kind of seeing all the great things that Sam, Ash, and Lewis were doing, that really pushed me in my modules. It pushed me outside of university to start doing, you know, doing those personal projects and learning more. And I wanted to be up there with those guys, because at the time, you know, they were the A grade students, the ones who were really like dedicating themselves to the course and working really, really hard. And it was, you know, it was paying off for them, you know. And so when I went into Canalside and Sam, Ash, and Lewis started Hypersloth, that was a relationship and a, you know, that we sort of we got to know each other quite well over that year. I still remember them being outside my house at like 3 a.m, all shouting when I didn't really know them, thinking, "Oh my god, who the hell are these guys? I can't believe they're on my course." But you know, it all kind of comes full circle, really, where, you know, events come up where there was one where I think you guys didn't have a laptop to show Dream, and I had a laptop, and I was like, "Use my laptop," you know. And it was never really done out from any ulterior motive of, oh great, when they get funding they will hire me, you know. It was just, I was just making friends with people, you know. And yeah,
I mean,
it was so important, and it'll help you push yourself, push each other.
Yeah,
You'll
I think
make your
you're right
best
there. Like
friends.
that the anecdote of Ollie was that sort of say that, actually tie into what you say of don't be a dick, is that there's very much this case of you could very easily meet anyone from your course at any point in your career future on, and if you're known as that person that is not a nice person to get on with, was really difficult, is that will follow you through your career.
Yeah, I mean, we hired Gary because we were like, who's the most passionate? We didn't care about how good they were. It was about whether we were willing to learn. Gary was good. That wasn't like just to point out you were good enough, Gary. It's just we were looking for someone with that passion that was willing to learn. And we all said Gary straight away, which was we'd not really known you. I think we'd had a couple of passings, a couple of laughs, a couple of chats. And I think I remember going into Canalside and you were like, you were outside my window being noisy. I was like, no, that was the beer, not me. But we knew your sort of passion. So yeah, it's about how approachable or making those friends.
We've kind of gone on like an agony aunt sort of discussion at the moment, so we've been going for a while. So let's
nearly done, I believe.
Start wrapping up.
Let me quickly. So we finally launched in 2015. Did really well. It's on Steam. Go have a look. It'll be a quid at Christmas. It's a bit old now, no PBR, but it's something cool. This is a slide I normally show at EPY because people think, you must be loaded if you've sold that many. So in 2015, we sold 88,000 copies, and that's over $750,000 turnover sort of in revenue. And people think, wow, but actually, no. If you turn that into pounds, it's just over $500,000. Take 30% away for Steam, that's 385. Mastertronic recouped their dev costs, and they recouped it within the first couple of weeks. And then they went bankrupt and took a lot of profit that they owed us, which was unfortunate. But they also got 171 grand out of us as their 40% cut. Then there's corporation tax, wages, and we, like I say, we didn't pay Gary well, we didn't pay ourselves well. Then we've got marketing, sort of overhead, trips. In the end, £70,000 profit from that $500,000 we'd made, which is nothing really, but it's all about that experience, and that is the profit we pour into another game, which we did. I'll skip this for now. We, like I say, we developers signed us up. We hired 4 new employees, started a new game, and then unfortunately issues sort of appeared that were sort of beyond our control. Lewis got really ill, I sort of then had to carry the company, and I just got not over my mental health stuff, but was handling it a lot. But then I started to get ill. And then my dad passed away, unfortunately, and that really nicked me for 6. So we took a step back and started doing smaller projects outsourcing. Devolver was super kind, and they even let us off with quite a lot of money that they sort of poured into it, and we still own the rights if we ever wanted to release it. But yeah, things happen, and I've never been fond of change myself. I think it doesn't really work for me with my sort of mental issues that I've had. But with my dad going, I just got into a relationship 3 months before, which is still going strong. I decided, okay, I've had so much change, let me do the change that I want to. And I spoke to sort of the course leader at the time when I was uni about doing a master's and getting into teaching. I've always feel like I'm quite selfless and I like to help. So I wanted to teach, but I sort of put it off because Hypesoft did so well. So I was like, right, let's try a new sort of approach. So that's it. That's my sort of story. Just wanted to do a quick sort of guest lecture, I suppose, and explain EPY and the whole process. But yeah,
I think it's really interesting because it's interesting to hear the stories of everyone from all their different aspects, what they've been doing, how did they get to where they are, the ups and downs, because everyone's story is unique. How they progress through uni, how they handle the different pressures of uni, and then move on to their early career, how they tackle the different challenges that come up in early career sort of approaches. And then later career, what they actually intend to do with that knowledge, that information they've got. It's always fascinating me to see how each individual basically tackles these situations and what choices they make to overcome them.
I think it being indie as well, we said it in the other live stream when we were going about how many jobs there are in the industry. You have to juggle all these things. So you're thrown in at the deep end, and the amount of stuff you learn because you're having to do this to survive is phenomenal. I probably shouldn't say this, but I came back to university in third year and just whipped through the course straight away because of what I'd learned. And
Yeah.
it was such a good experience. I wouldn't change it for the world. The only thing I would change is the sort of hell my mentality put Gary and Sam and Lewis through. But we're still pretty close. We're still like family, and you get those relationships, those skills for life to sort of carry through.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's if any of you are considering EPY, consider it. I think there are people who are quite happy to go and work in a big studio and kind of be a little cog in a gigantic machine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And sometimes I think to myself, like, would that, should I have done that? Gone into the sort of gone in and almost had like more mentorship, for when I was starting out, and had, sort of people above me who were, helping me more, because there wasn't a lot of that support network. So if anything, that's kind of what I personally would like to give back in a way, is like, if there is a way that I can help any kind of budding EPY team or whatever, and try and push them in a direction that's hopefully, never guarantees for success, but might help in some way. So yeah, it's a massive learning experience. If you're gonna do it, then do it. Just try and cover all your bases first and go in with either a great concept that you're either working on, or do your research to reflect on what the some of the stuff that Ash has been saying, because it's all mega valuable. It's fun and it's scary, and sometimes it's sad and sometimes it's great, and it's still really rewarding to do.
Yeah,
But
the highs are
it's hard work to
high.
Didn't know where high was. It's so bash.
It's high.
Yeah.
like,
No, I think this is to sort of bring it all the way back to the very beginning. Is that we have the EPY program, the Enterprise Placement Year program, and like we said, is that it will appeal to a certain type of student. And if you are that student, it can be amazing if you take advantage of it and you come and have a chat with us, you come and chat with the EPY team. It won't be for all of you. Some of you, as Gary says, there are a lot of other different job roles. Some of you will know straight away that you want to go and work in a studio, whether it's a medium-sized studio, whether it's a large AAA studio, whatever it might be. Every single one of these routes into industry are completely valid and actually all have their own difficulties and expertise that are needed. But some of you out there will be the entrepreneurial type, the ones that know, no, I do want to do this. I want to go and do this, or I think that's what will make me happy, is driving my own destiny. Then get in touch with Ash and the EPY team and make sure that we know that that's you, essentially.
Yeah.
If there's anything you want to talk about beforehand, like, I'm happy to, DM me on Discord. Whenever.
Cool.
Cool.
So to wrap up, we're from there we go. We got all our stuff. So this will all go on YouTube afterwards. So if you want to go and have a listen to Ash's story again, you can do. There's the details at HudUniGames.co.uk at the bottom. Thanks for joining us for this chat, and we'll see you next week, where we'll probably be showing some student work off.
Nice.
So look forward to that.
That's
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.